Hello, hello, people. Let me just get this perfect. The reason why I'm just trying to get that in the perfect direction is because, like that side, you can tell I've got some Halloween decorations up. Obviously, it is all about Halloween today. And do you know what? I think it's quite fitting because it's a very strange celebration, if we can call it that. And also, Manchester United are in a very strange predicament. But I say that. But I almost feel as if we've always been here before, especially after Sir Alex Ferguson retired. It was the day Manchester United went down, and they went down quite badly. We've had so many managers, all sorts of different types of managers. We've had the Premier League proven experience in David Moyes. The less said about that, the better. Then we move on to the likes of Louis van Gaal and Jose Mourinho, big European names with a huge pedigree across football. And then we move on to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, which I'm not entirely sure what he exactly brought to the club, besides him being an absolute legend, of course, scoring the brilliant goal in '99, which cemented his name in the folklore of Manchester United. And then we move on to Erik ten Hag. We move on to an individual who I think is fair to say brought the most excitement when it came to Manchester United. This was the individual that Man United haven't really tried before, someone who's up and coming relative to their career, of course. The football he was playing at Ajax is not really like anything we've seen at Manchester United because it was good. But look, we're here to dissect, of course, Erik ten Hag. We're here to dissect not only the derby, what went wrong, but also the big talking points and the big takeaways from that game, because there are plenty. And I almost look at it and I think, is this now the same old story at Manchester United? But before I get into everything, before I get into your comments, I just want to give a massive shout out to everyone of the MUFC MPB channel. Their Twitter account has been something I've been following long before I've done any work for them, and they are quite literally up to date with everything as it happens, minute by minute. So please be sure not only to like and subscribe on the YouTube channel, but also hit the follow button on the Twitter account as well. And of course, a big shout out to Ash, Anton, and Aaron. These three individuals are absolutely brilliant when they bring you some coverage on the MUFC MPB channel. So please be sure to follow their stuff. Their handles on X or Twitter, whatever you call it these days, is in the description below. So now that we've got all the relevant shout outs out the way, Erik ten Hag, let's talk about the man himself. And before we get into obviously what I think, fire the questions in straight away. We've already got one, which I'll get to very shortly. But what do you think about Manchester United? What's going on at the moment? What is the number one thing you want to see changed at Manchester United? Where's it all gone wrong for Ten Hag? And also your questions for me. What do you want me to discuss and what do you want me to answer? Of course, I've got a running order here. I've got things I want to discuss, but ultimately this will be shaped by you guys. So please be sure to let me know what you want to talk about. And also, what I tend to do towards the end of the show, if you guys are still with me towards the back end of the hour, I'll give a player shout out, whether it's past or present. I like to give just a shout out, end the show with a bit of positivity. So get your shout out for them players as well. Like I said, past or present, who do you want to give a bit of praise to? And I think based on what we've been seeing the last few weeks, it's probably going to be a player from the past. But we'll get straight into things now. Mia, thank you so much for getting involved. She's commented, the problem is we don't recruit based on an underlying philosophy, but rather chop and change based on the manager. That's why we need a competent director of football to ensure continuity. I can't even say that word. What's going on? I've got a journalism degree, A level in English, and I can't say continuity. There we go. We got that in strategy. Thank you so much, Mia, for of course getting involved. And that is a brilliant point that she's made there. Ultimately, it's chopping and changing constantly the philosophy, not just that, the player targets, the way Man United want to play. We've got players still to this day that Sir Alex Ferguson had, of course, with Johnny Evans, and then every other manager since, we've still got a player from that management style, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a massive, massive point. Man United need massive direction and a big change, but whether or not we like it, of course, the Glazers are a massive issue. It's never going to go away. And let's be realistic, it's going to be the same old Groundhog Day story when it comes to the Glazers, because ultimately the same type of managerial decisions, the same type of managerial backing will always happen, because ultimately it starts from the top. But let's get into briefly now a bit of a debrief on the Manchester derby. I know it's probably been done to death. I know it's really boring now, considering we've got a game tomorrow in the League Cup, which will probably prove to be Man United's only realistic opportunity of getting any silverware, as it was last season as well. But we look at the Manchester derby now, and Man United have won the last 3 out of 4 games that they've played, which is absolutely crazy to me. It genuinely feels like we haven't won in months. And that's down to the performances. That's down to what we're seeing. That's down to the output on the pitch from the players and, of course, the manager. What are the tactics? What are the specific styles of play that Eric Ten Hag wants to implement in his team? Because please, guys, let me know in the comments. I am struggling to see, especially from the back end or the whole of last season compared to now. The drop off is insane. The fall off is quite hard to even compute because of the difference, the golfing class between the two sides. Realistically, besides 1 or 2, maybe 3 or 4 signings from now until last season, it's virtually the same squad. It's the same manager. So why has the football changed so much? I just want to take you back to really specifically, and I know some people, a friend of mine who I was watching it with, he said to me as well when I said this in the first 5 minutes, why are you picking on him? It's only been 5 minutes, so give him a chance at least to get into the game. I'm talking about Christian Eriksen. And now, starting Christian Eriksen after the FA Cup final, considering how much of a hole he left in that midfield against the same opposition, for then to go and play him and start him in the Manchester derby, quite frankly, is naive. I think it was a very naive thing also to bring on a midfielder in the attacking sense, just because it worked against Copenhagen. Eric Ten Hag and Man United thought that it would work against the best team in Europe, quite literally the treble winners. It pains me to say it, but they are. They're the best in the land and the country and the world, whatever you want to call it. For Eric Ten Hag to make that decision again because it was at a similar result or a similar scoreline at halftime is naive. It's not something that fills me with great hope or great positivity or any ambition going forward into the season. And I just want to really highlight one decision out of many decisions that were very questionable from Eric Ten Hag in the Manchester derby. So, of course, as I've just alluded to, he brought on Mason Mount for Sofian Amrabat. Sofian Amrabat was the only recognisable holding midfielder in the whole of the squad, of course, because Casemiro was injured. So, going into that second half, Manchester United had Christian Eriksen, Mason Mount, Scott McTominay, and Bruno Fernandes. If you had all 4 of them players come into your office or to come have a conversation with you and you ask them each and individually, where would you want to play? If you could have one position in this Manchester United team, where would you want to play? All 4 of them would say they want to play as a centre attacking midfielder, as a number 10. All 4 of them, if it was down to their preference, that's where they would want to play. So by that very logic, you have got now going into the second half against Manchester City, the best team in Europe, with 4 central attacking midfielders dotted around the pitch when there's only one attacking midfielder position in the way Eric Ten Hag sets up. If this doesn't scream at you the issues and the worry that you may have of Eric Ten Hag, then I'm not sure anything will. And now I'm not going to sit here and completely conclude that I want Eric Ten Hag to be gone. It's over. It's done. I want him out, because at the end of the day, the credit in the bank that he's obviously inherited from last season allows him a bit more time. I get that. And he is obviously the manager, for me anyway, that I've been most excited about since coming into Manchester United. But when there's decisions like that being made on the pitch, when there are, as I say, 4 attacking midfielders on the pitch at the same time in a formation that only allows one attacking midfielder, I just don't know what's going on. And Sofian Amrabat, of course, I was a massive fan. I was a massive advocate. I was saying on TalkSport, I was saying on my own platform, I was saying even on MUFC MPB, amongst other channels as well. I'm a massive advocate of signing Sofian Amrabat. He is a brilliant player. And of course, the jury is still out on him. There have been a couple of questionable performances, and there have obviously been a couple of Manchester United fans skeptical, to say the least. But he's the only option in the holding midfielder role that Eric Ten Hag had, and he takes him off. It's naive. It's not screaming at me. It's not giving me any hope that Eric Ten Hag ultimately has got a direct style, a direct formation, or a direct way of playing against any other team. But we'll get into that shortly when we dissect a little bit more of Eric Ten Hag. So please, guys, get your comments in, and we will obviously get your name shouted at, and we'll also discuss what you guys want to talk about as well. But in terms of obviously the game itself, Manchester City, I mean, come on. They are brilliant. It doesn't take a genius to work out. I don't need a microphone and a camera for me to conclude that Manchester United, Manchester City, sorry, I wish Man United, Manchester City are the best team in Europe. But by their standards, by their brilliant standards, and I was speaking to several Manchester City fans after the game. Somehow I managed to have a bit of a debrief, if you like. And I said to them, and they were all in agreement with me, that Manchester City, by their own levels, were only playing at about 6 out of 10. For me, I was watching Manchester City, and they were brilliant. Of course, everyone's pretty much brilliant when they come against Manchester United. But you look at the way they were playing; they were just stroking the ball about, they were pinging it around, they were getting into spaces, they were making very, very light work of just breaking through Manchester United at ease, realistically. And if it wasn't for some brilliance from from Andre Onana, I don't know what I was going to say, Victor. Then Victor Onana, no, it doesn't make any sense. Andre Onana, of course, he does deserve a bit of a mention here. I know there's been some horrific issues going on with Manchester United at the moment, with the takeover, or the so-called takeover, with the difficulties on the pitch, with the signings, but Onana deserves a shout out, because if it wasn't for Onana, that Manchester derby could have gone down in history as the biggest scoreline that we've ever had against Manchester City, because Man United didn't look like scoring for love nor money. But if it wasn't for the brilliance in certain saves and the positioning as well of Onana, which has come under scrutiny over the last few weeks, then Manchester United could have been down badly. And just be thankful that he had a game that kept it to a relatively, you know, not so embarrassing scoreline, which is crazy for me to say. I'm a Manchester United fan, and we're literally talking about, as long as it doesn't get too bad, if that doesn't say what the state of affairs is at Manchester United right now, then as I said before, I don't know what will. So a big shout out to Onana, because I do think he does deserve a little bit of praise. But if we look at the Manchester derby again, Eric Ten Hag quite openly admitting that he made a tactical decision in starting Johnny Evans over Rafael Varane. It wasn't anything to do with injuries, as far as I'm aware. It wasn't made public that it was an injury concern to Varane. But to start a 35-year-old Johnny Evans against probably the most potent striker across Europe, again raises questions. Would you not want someone who's, experienced, vastly experienced, against coming up against the biggest names in Europe when it comes to that striker in Rafael Varane? But realistically, I think there were so many issues that raised questions over Eric Ten Hag. There were so many things that I watched that game and I genuinely thought to myself, as a massive fan of Eric Ten Hag, where does he go from here? How does he turn this ship around? Especially given the success of last season. He overachieved last season. And I know that sounds crazy considering it's Manchester United, but the state of the club on the pitch was absolutely terrible for him to inherit. He took over from an what's interim manager in Ralph Rangnick, who I will be discussing a little bit later, because his comments keep resurfacing, and would you believe it, they all have come true and they will continue to come true. But in terms of Eric Ten Hag, you look at what was going on there, the decision not to play Varane, the decision to drag off Sofian Amrabat and leave on 4 attacking midfielders in the same positions when there's only one attacking midfielder in that formation. You look at it and you think it was a damning, damning match for Manchester United. This Manchester derby now is becoming the Merseyside derby. I say that because there's one team that are quite rightly, and they are the outright favourites going into every single game. And the other side, the Everton, and in this case, Manchester United's of the derbies, they just hope that for some miracle, there could be a surprising result. I would never, ever anticipate, even when Manchester United were dominant against Manchester City, even when Manchester City quite quickly overtook Manchester United, the one thing you can guarantee is that Manchester United, especially at Old Trafford, will be up for this Manchester derby. But the way in which Manchester United lost that game, the way in which they were battered from pillar to post, from the first position right through to the striker role, the golfing class is quite damning. And let me tell you now, it is a damning indictment of not only how far Manchester United have fallen, but how far Eric Ten Hag has fallen in his tactics at Manchester United. Now, like I said, I just want to take this time to get the comments in, people. Come on, let's get this popping up. Let's get your thoughts. What's going on at Manchester United? What do you think the issue is? Do you still believe in Eric Ten Hag, and do you think he is the right man to come in to stay at Manchester United? Sorry, not to come in, because it feels like that, doesn't it, at this time of year? But let me know what you guys think. Right. I'm going to take, it's quite early on, but I normally take a sip of water probably halfway through the show. But I think now is relevant because this is the big talking point. This is what you guys have come here for. Eric Ten Hag. Should Manchester United sack Eric Ten Hag? That one was good. That one was good. I've had normally a couple of times where I've tried to do that and it didn't work, but that one I felt was quite powerful. So, if the EastEnders music like doof, 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 that should come in right now. Anyway, let's get down to serious business. But before we will get into Eric Ten Hag, I've just had a comment here from Inside Man United. Hey, Anil, trying to find a way to reach you on Twitter via email. You got a handle I can reach one. Yeah, of course, mate. It's Anil Kandola, my name on Twitter, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. So drop me a message, whatever it may be. Hopefully it's some good Manchester United news, but I don't think it will be. So yeah, just my name, and you will be able to get in touch with me. So Rajat has also commented as well. Thanks for getting involved, mate. Man United half back the manager, and then 2, 3, maybe 4 years, we're talking about sacking another coach. Exactly that. It's the same old cycle. I'm sure you guys have seen that picture of the cycle where it says have a new manager. A lot of optimism comes in. He gets top four. The next season, he's not back, so some issues happen. They fall out of the top four, get sacked, and then the whole cycle starts again. That is, of course, what Manchester United are. And it's a very poignant point there. But let's get into right now. So, Eric Ten Hag, should he be sacked? For me, there has been too many problems on that pitch that show Eric Ten Hag, he's too far gone. The decisions, the tactics, the in-game management has just gone so west. I can't even recognize Eric Ten Hag anymore. It pains me to say it because I was a massive advocate. When I got the news, thankfully, before most people and most companies and industries and all that kind of stuff, when Eric Ten Hag was announced to me that he will be coming in as the Manchester United manager, I was absolutely over the moon. This guy has brought through miracles at Ajax with the style of football, the enjoyment he brought to the Ajax fans, not just with the plethora of trophies, but also with the style of football. It was so distinctive across Europe. You knew. I always like to do this this test, really. So if you were colorblind and you didn't know what team was which, could you tell if that team was the team we're talking about? So, for instance, if you're watching Man United versus Chelsea, if you were colorblind, could you tell distinctively who Man United were? Right now, the answer is no. Unfortunately, for Manchester United fans, all of that stuff of Ajax has seemed to have been swept under the carpet. Eric Ten Hag, of course, came out and said that the football played at Ajax will not be possible to be played at Manchester United. And again, this is a massive red flag for me. Every Manchester United fan was excited for the very reason that Eric Ten Hag has just denied being able to happen at Manchester United. Manchester United fans wanted that enjoyment watching their team. Manchester United fans wanted to be able to clearly identify the style of play in which Manchester United play in, something that hasn't happened at Manchester United for so long. And now this seems to be the same old cycle again. And like I said, I'm not going to sit here and scream Eric Ten Hag out. I don't want to do that. I don't want to sit here and call for his head because I feel like, as I've said before, his credit in the bank from last season and previous seasons with Ajax, of course, has allowed him a little bit, as I say, of credit in the bank, potentially to see out at least a couple of more months. But please tell me now in the comments, please let me know, because I'm struggling to find any answers to this question. How can Eric Ten Hag turn this around? Because ultimately, even the very philosophy that he wanted to be brought into Manchester United has now gone. There was no guarantee for Manchester United that there would be trophies. There was no guarantee there would be even top four finishes in Champions League football straight away when Eric Ten Hag came in. But the one non-negotiable, the one thing that Manchester United fans were guaranteed was a distinctive style of play. The one thing that was guaranteed for Eric Ten Hag coming in was that Manchester United will be enjoyable to watch. Win, draw or lose, you will be directly identifiable when it comes to that squad because you know the exact way that Man United want to play. That now has gone down. That has gone down the drain and that has gone into the bin. And I look at it now and I look at the way that Manchester United managers have been treated in the last few years, in the last few appointments. And we all know when it comes to this time, October, November time, just ask Jose Mourinho, just ask Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. This is normally the time that the manager gets the bullet. And now I cannot sit here as a Manchester United fan and wholeheartedly say that the thought of letting Eric Ten Hag go has not crossed my mind. I'll be honest with you guys, and I'm probably going to, wile up a few Manchester United fans because of how much Eric Ten Hag is loved. But if you look and you see it for what it is, right now, Manchester United are not playing in the way they should be. There's not even a direct formation. What is Manchester United's strongest 11? And now people say to me a lot, ultimately, that, the formation should be very distinctive. And the one thing I was going to say was the injuries. A lot of people will say about Eric Ten Hag that, you know, the injuries have really hindered him, and I can completely agree with that to a certain extent. But then you look at the midfield options against Manchester City. There was only one injury, as far as I'm aware of, in Casemiro. Besides that, all of the midfielders were available to Eric Ten Hag. And what does he do? He plays in the second half 4 attacking midfielders when there's only one 10 role in that team. If that doesn't scream issues at you, then I'm not sure what will. But before I get into a direct comparison of what makes it so damning at Manchester United right now, we'll jump into the comments because we've got a few here. So we've got Inside Man United has said, also Ten Hag firmly in. He's clearly made some mad decisions showing lack of faith in his big signings. He needs a foundation to build on. Don't think, another comment from Rajat here. Don't think Ten Hag didn't want to work with Ralph Rangnick. It was Glazers who didn't want him after his open heart surgery comment. Fair comment. Luke, thanks a lot for coming in as well. Pre-season, the youngsters looked promising. I agree, totally. And he's also said you're going to lose some subs. I assume that's because I've said that I'm not sure if Eric Ten Hag's the right man to move Manchester United forward. And I'm sorry, and I probably will get a lot of stick for this because, you know, it's not exactly a good message to be throwing out to the listeners and the audience. But I just have to be honest. That's my one commitment to doing this channel, my one commitment to working in the sports broadcasting industry. No matter when there's a microphone or a camera in front of me, I'm just going to say it how I see it. And whether or not that's people thinking that I'm trying to get clicks or numbers, then so be it. Because I've made one promise to myself coming into this industry, and that is to stay true and to stay honest to my opinion. And I'm not gonna change that. And we've got another comment here from Luke saying, nah, stick with the manager. I completely respect that, and I completely understand that, because as I say, he's got credit in the bank, hasn't he? He's got obviously a bit of evidence from last year. But Luke, the thing that I really worry about is if these 2 seasons were swapped around, so if this was right at the start of Eric Ten Hag's career at Manchester United, I wouldn't really be too concerned because, as you say, it's a process, right? But then the fact that he had all of that and then he goes into the new season, he made the signings that he did, and for him to look at that squad and think Mason Mount is the answer, fair enough. If that's the case, then so be it. But for then him to go into arguably the biggest game of the season against Manchester City and start him on the bench when there's no injury concerns, where there's nothing of the sort of that nature anyway coming into play, it makes you think, it makes you question what the hell is going on at Manchester United right now, because you can look at it in 2 ways now. So he took off, if I'm not mistaken, Sofian Amrabat for Mason Mount. So you've took off a player that you signed on deadline day for a player that you signed the very first one when it came into Manchester United. So where have you got this wrong, Eric Ten Hag? Have you got it wrong for making the signing of Amrabat because you started him and you thought, right, take him off, you identified him as the issue? Or have you made the problem that you've benched Mason Mount, your first signing, your new number 7? Which one is it? Because either avenue you go down, my friend, it doesn't look too great. And this is my issue. This is my problem. How can you do that when you've made 2 signings that were meant to be transformational for Manchester United's midfield, and one of them starts on the bench and the other one gets dragged off at half time? It makes no sense. These questionable decisions from Eric Ten Hag has left me ultimately with the massive question, and if I'm being totally honest, a bit of doubt as to whether Eric Ten Hag is the right man to move Manchester United forward. And now we as I say, we'll go into one direct comparison that I have, which is so damning. Excuse me. It's so damning for Eric Ten Hag. He goes by the name of Ange Postecoglou. And before I get onto him, let's go through some of the comments again. So we've got here, pre-season, the youngsters look promising, as I've said. You know, some of you guys are saying that we need to play the youngsters tomorrow. WY, who always gets involved. Big shout out to you, my friend. We need to play the youngsters tomorrow. And you know what? I agree. Not only, as we've already alluded to in the chat, you know, the youngsters did look quite promising in pre-season. So let's give them a chance, because not one single player on that pitch for Manchester United in terms of the seniors are looking as if they want to be there. They're looking as if they want to play for Manchester United. They all need to give their heads a bit of a wobble, if I'm being totally honest. Rajat's come back in with another comment, said, we made Manchester City look like they were playing some amateur team. Yes, Onana kept it from being 6-0. Bang on, my friend. I said that at the top of the show. Onana deserves a big shout out. And I know normally I do my shout out at the end of the show, which I will do. So please get your comments in below, guys. What player, past or present, do you want to give a shout out to for this show? That's what I like to do. I like to end it always on a positive note. But it reminds me now of one player that I want to talk about, Harry Maguire. Now, Harry Maguire has gone through a lot of stick, a lot of scrutiny through however long, however many months, because he is surplus to requirements at Manchester United. I personally believe he should be moved on because I don't think that he's quite at the level that Manchester United need to really challenge for the big trophies. But the one thing I will say, out of every single one of them players, now Man United fans know we have been riddled with injuries, which the only positive that injuries provide is allowing the fringe players to come in and really prove what they're about, really show and showcase a strong case as to why they should be in that starting 11. And now the one player that has actually stepped up, ironically, is Harry Maguire. And I will say it as I say it, how I see it. And I will give Harry Maguire that credit because he's the only one, despite me thinking he is not good enough to play for Manchester United, he is the only one who has actually tried to make a difference in that squad. He is the only one who's actually tried to show that he is trying to get into the team at the very minimum. Now, with a fully fit squad, when Martinez comes back, it's almost inevitable, right, that Maguire's not going to be in the squad. Who knows, even by January or even in the summer, he might not even be at Man United. But the one thing you cannot say about Harry Maguire over the last couple of games is that he hasn't been the one who has tried to lead by example. And that, my friends, is a damning indictment yet again of Manchester United, that the very player who was at the top of many people, including Erik ten Hag's transfer list, is one of the only players who is stepping up right now to show that he cares about Manchester United. Now, that quite literally is just, when you say it out loud, it just makes you think, wow, this is the fall from grace that Manchester United have come from, and now they find themselves into. King Holy has just come in for a message. Thank you so much. And he's just put, I need Ollie back. Ooh, if you guys have seen my streams or any of my content before, I think that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, oh, dearie me, I would rather have Gareth Southgate as the manager than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and make of that what you will. Please do not bring Ole Gunnar Solskjaer back and start the same old cycle again. You guys might want that, but for me, it's not what I want. Rajet has come forward saying he has to get Frankie de Jong and Harry Kane. It's also a massive, massive good point there. He has to get Frankie de Jong and he has to get Harry Kane, of course. It's a massive, massive point that we need to make out. The owners have not helped Manchester United and the manager whatsoever. People will point towards the finances and say he spent X amount. Let's be honest, if he was really backed in the way that he wanted to, Harry Kane would be playing for Man United and Frankie de Jong would be playing for Man United last season. But you look at the players that he did get his first choices in. Mason Mount was the number one target for Manchester United in the summer. I've got that on good authority, and it doesn't come as new news. Mason Mount was the number one target that Erik ten Hag wanted to get through the door. He was the one who he spent, I think it was 55 to 65 million, if you include add-ons and all of that stuff, for Mason Mount. He was the first one to come into Manchester United. And again, that's quite a damning verdict on Erik ten Hag, that he saw that team that finished in the top three. He saw that team who won a Carabao Cup and thought the one player or if the first player, should I say, to come into Manchester United to elevate them to the next level is Mason Mount. I just don't know what to say. I just genuinely don't know what to say, which isn't helpful because I'm talking to you guys on a live stream right now. But realistically, how many people can you turn around and say that isn't a questionable decision? That isn't the wrong choice. And I'm not going to sit here, and I never have, to say that Mason Mount is a bad player. But is he the same player that Manchester United require in that midfield? The answer is no. The answer was given to you in the game against Manchester City, where he started on the bench, and they started on the bench in the previous game and didn't even get a minute in the Champions League game. Excuse me. I always seem like I'm going to cry, but I don't. I promise you. One day, Manchester United will break me, but today will not be that day. I owe a duty. I have a duty to you guys watching on the stream now. I will not break. Just not now. King Holy, before I get into what I want to say about Erik ten Hag, said, I need Fred back. Why did Fred go? Again, this is a questionable decision. I think we can all be in agreement to say that Fred isn't at the level required to really propel Manchester United to the top level. But if you're talking about a game like the Manchester Derby, could you imagine Fred in that midfield? Could you imagine him helping out Sofian Amrabat like he did with Casemiro last season? Could you imagine what he would bring? But then he was the one being sold for pennies, if we're being perfectly honest, before people like Scott McTominay. There again lies an issue, and a very questionable one when it comes to Erik ten Hag. And realistically, where is his headspace at the moment? And now, one example I wanted to give you guys, one person and one individual that I want to talk about is Ange Postecoglou. Look at the difference. This guy has come into the job within 8 weeks, and you can already tell directly how Tottenham play football. If there's injuries, heaven forbid, to that side, then you know someone's going to come in to play that same way. With Manchester United, if there's an injury and there's a new player that comes into that side, the whole formation, the whole tactic, the whole way of trying to score a goal changes completely. This is worrying. This is so concerning for me, realistically, because I look at it and I think, look what Ange Postecoglou's done at Tottenham. Yes, the title is not guaranteed for Tottenham. Of course it isn't. That's not exactly a massive statement, is it? Top four, even though it looks likely for Tottenham right now, isn't a guarantee. A trophy is not guaranteed for Ange Postecoglou in Tottenham this season. But the one non-negotiable that Ange Postecoglou, the same way Eric Ten Hag came into Manchester United, the one non-negotiable was, you will see a way that we want to play football. You will see the way that we set up. And now we look at it and you think, right now, can anyone honestly answer me the question, do you know the way Eric Ten Hag wants to play football? He's just opened his mouth by saying that the way that Ajax played is impossible at Manchester United. So what evidence, what are we going to base ourselves off when it comes to deciding the way that Eric Ten Hag and Manchester United want to play football? Because for me right now, there's more questions than there are answers. And that is a damning verdict, as I keep saying on this stream, because Manchester United at this moment in time are going in the wrong direction. They're not progressing. They're not playing a certain brand of football. They're not bringing in players that are actually enhancing the way that Manchester United want to play. It's constant questions. And realistically, where are we going to find the answers? And now we'll go back into the comments here. So Inside Man United has commented again. Fastest manager to 20 wins. Beat Fulham. Fastest manager to 50 wins. 63% win percentage. A couple of bad decisions. Rank injuries. Multiple scandals. Takeover sagas / crisis. And we are ready to bin him. It's a very fair point. And this is the response that I was expecting, because ultimately it's exactly what it was. Eric Ten Hag's probably had to deal with more than any other manager to try and navigate his way through. But the one thing that Eric Ten Hag has said consistently, I just want to bring up very briefly the Mason Greenwood situation. When journalists and the media were constantly asking Eric Ten Hag about Mason Greenwood, what the situation is, all of that kind of stuff, the one consistent answer that Eric Ten Hag was giving throughout the Mason Greenwood situation is, I'm a football manager. My focus is what's going on the pitch, and I don't need to answer any questions around that. And I was a massive advocate for that, because it's not his place to comment on situations like that surrounding the club. But when you look at what's going on now, when you look at the things that Eric Ten Hag is actually responsible for, the questions are there, people. The questions of the tactics, as I keep saying, the formations, the decisions to start certain players, the blind loyalty to certain players like Bruno Fernandes, like Marcus Rashford. And I only have to give an example of Arsenal at the weekend. They dropped Martin Odegaard, their best player, their captain. And people, Arsenal fans will say to me, no, it was rotation to give Smith Rowe a chance. Call it what you want. Rotation, dropping Odegaard. Like I say, name what you like, call it what you want. But they took out their best player because he wasn't performing at a level that Mikel Arteta wanted to. Could you ever imagine a situation where Eric Ten Hag would do that with Bruno Fernandes? He's being shoehorned out to the right-hand side when we all know he is not effective whatsoever from that right-hand side. So why is he being shoehorned into the team so we can provide other platforms for players to come into that team? It makes no sense. Constantly, Manchester United fans have defended Eric Ten Hag, and rightly so, by the way, because of all the BS that I was going to swear them, but we want to keep this PG. All the BS that he has had to deal with off the pitch. But when them problems start to spill on the pitch, and when them problems actually have to lie at the feet of Eric Ten Hag, we must ask questions, and we must say, well, hang on a minute. You said you were focusing on the football, but the football doesn't look like it's being focused on at all. And then again, I'll go back to it. You know, people will say to me about Ange Postecoglou when I make the comparison. Why have they got such a distinctive style of play at Tottenham? When you look at it and you say, well, Ange Postecoglou didn't come into an environment like Manchester United. Are we all forgetting that Tottenham fans have a very strong disliking towards Daniel Levy? Are we all forgetting that virtually people were almost laughing at Ange Postecoglou when he came into the Tottenham job? What, he's won a few trophies at Celtic. What's he going to do in the big league? What's he going to do for Tottenham? You know, the specialist in failure and all this garbage. Look at the way they're playing now. I will go so far to say, right now, at this stage, albeit we're only 10 or 11 games into the season, Ange Postecoglou has got Tottenham become why can't I get my words out? I'm having a shocker. Clearly, you can tell by emotion, right? Ange Postecoglou has got Tottenham playing the best football in the Premier League right now. And some people would disagree with me, but in terms of entertainment, if you just want to switch on a game of football, the team you want to watch now when it comes to getting your value for money in them 90 minutes is Tottenham Hotspur. And he's been in the job for 8 weeks. Eric Ten Hag has had over a year now. And like I said, trophies, okay, we can wait. We've waited long enough for a significant trophy. Top four, we've been in and out, shake it all about for however many years at Manchester United. But the one thing we wanted, the one thing we were promised was a distinctive style of play, was a direct formation. And irrespective of any injuries, no matter how bad it gets, the player coming in for the injured player knows this is the way we want to play. The under 21 should be playing the same way. The under 18s, the academy should all be playing the same way. So when they filter through to the top, they know what kind of formation and style of play Eric Ten Hag wants to play. But this is not happening at Manchester United right now. And you look at it and you look at the on-field decisions that he's made. In what planet would be acceptable to take Rasmus Højlund off the pitch at any stage whatsoever? He is quite literally the only hope Manchester United fans have got moving forward. And he hasn't even got a Premier League goal yet. And Manchester United fans know that this player will come good. But I almost think to myself, I really hope that this is not yet another career that has joined Manchester United, yet another promising career that is destined to go on to brilliant and great things, that has been chewed up and spat out by Manchester United. Look at Jose Mourinho. Look at even Louis van Gaal. Look at David Moyes after. He's only really come back in terms of being a respectable manager after what he's done in his second spell at West Ham. You look at that now and you think all of them careers, look on the playing side of things. Can anyone please name me right now one player that has left Manchester United in the last 10 years with a positive a CV, if you like, a positive reflection on what they've done? Has anyone left Manchester United? Has any player left Manchester United with a positive reflection of what they've done at their time at Manchester United? I'll wait. I will wait until the day I die, because right now there is not a single player that can hold their head with high regard and say, do you know what? I know it was tough at Man United, but at least I gave it my all. I've gone on to ventures new and can, as I say, hold my head up high. There's not one single player. And if that's not a damning indictment again of what's going on at Manchester United, what will be? And another thing I wanted to talk about, but before I do, I will get into the comments right now. I'm just sorting my wig out, and as some of you may know already, the very first stream that I did, someone said that get this stupid wig off the camera or something like that. I can confirm just about. I know it's not in the great shape at the moment, but it's not a wig. But anyway, rant over. Let's get back into the comments. So we've got here, maybe Ten Hag has too much controls for transfers. He needs to be given less. Very valid point. If we had a director of football, as we had as a comment right at the top of the show from Mia, who said that we need a director of football. If there was a director in football in charge at Manchester United, that doesn't mean for rival fans, that doesn't mean that Man United are going to be turned around. That doesn't mean, oh, wow, a miracle's about to happen. They're going to have everything. But I'm pretty certain if a director of football was there, they would not be saying spend 80 million on Anthony. They would not be saying certain things like that to come into the club. But you look at it and you just think, that's just one issue of many issues at Manchester United right now, you know? And it pains me to say it, but ultimately the questions have to be asked of Eric Ten Hag. We have to be fair. We have to give the same treatment as I have, certainly, to the likes of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, to Mourinho, who I was a massive fan of. Questions need to be asked at the appropriate time, guys, and questions are very relevant right now. I've had a nightmare today, haven't I? What a shocker from me. I should be playing for Man United, the amount of mishaps I've had in this show. But we'll get back into the comments. We'll let you guys do the presenting and the talking, because clearly I'm having an absolute Western supermare here. So Brian has come in with a comment. Brilliant to hear from you, Brian. Thanks a lot for your contribution. Eric Ten Hag has lost it. Wrong team selections, wrong substitutions, poor tactics, no style of play, and then publicly berates the team by saying they can't play the way his Ajax side played. What a brilliant comment that is, my friend. You've just pretty much summarized everything I'm going to say, or I have said already, because that is quite literally it. How can you envisage even the most optimistic Manchester United fan right now? How can you predict that Eric Ten Hag is going to turn this around? People, we have seen this script before. We have seen the way that Eric Ten Hag is going right now, and it would be nothing short of a miracle if he did turn this around, and I really hope he does. As I say, I've been a massive fan of Eric Ten Hag, but realistically, is there anything from this season in terms of performances that you can take as a positive right now? Because for me, there hasn't been. The whole of the season, any competition, Man United, barring probably one performance against Crystal Palace in the League Cup, have not had one single solid performance. And funnily enough, when they beat Crystal Palace, 3-4 days later, they played them in the league at Old Trafford and they lost. So again, realistically, that performance has been wiped out as well. And one thing I really wanted to talk about now is the blind loyalty to players like Fernandes and Rashford. These two players have obviously come under scrutiny because they are, of course, the captain and arguably the best player when everyone's fit and firing, Rashford and Fernandes. But as I said before, Martin Odegaard was dropped from Arsenal. Arsenal fans want to say rotation, call it what you want, but he was dropped, I like to say anyway, because his performances weren't up to scratch. Could you imagine Eric Ten Hag doing that with Fernandes? It ain't happening. It ain't happening. And this one thing as well that I really want to dissect into this idea of we don't want to change management because there's no one else out there. Now, if you don't want to change management when it comes to Eric Ten Hag because you really believe in what he's doing, then fair enough. I'm not addressing people like you because you just genuinely believe in the manager. You want to give him more time. But this notion, this idea that we shouldn't get rid of the manager because there's no other options out there. Right, I'll give you an example, a very relatable example that I think most of us can sort of resonate with. If you're in a relationship with someone and you know deep down that person, that individual isn't the right fit for you, it isn't working for you, and you know, as I say, in your heart of hearts, that the person you're in a relationship with, it's just not going to work. Would that mean that you're going to stay in that relationship because you're thinking, well, oh, that person's quite good looking, or, you know, I'm looking around and there's no one really out there that I could go for? Is that the reason why you're going to stay in that relationship? If that's the reason, give your head a wobble, because that's not the way that life works. That's not the way in which we should be adopting that method of thought process when it comes to Manchester United managers. Yes, Eric Ten Hag is a great coach. We can't say that just off the back of 10 games that he isn't, right? But if you know in your heart of hearts there are clear, identifiable problems that have never been addressed by any previous Manchester United manager, then the questions need to be put forward to this current manager. And that's my point. Just because you're in a relationship with someone and you are worried that there might not be anyone else out there for you or better than that person, then you're in it for the wrong reasons. And I don't want to, go down this route of this is a therapy session. It is a Man United fan channel. It is a Man United discussion based topics and all of that kind of stuff. So that's the way I just wanted to put it to you guys. It's food for thought at the end of the day, because I just look at it and I think to myself, Eric Ten Hag, he's got the backing of Manchester United fans. There's no two ways about it. He's often been the only shining light when there's been very dark days for Manchester United over the past 18 months or so. But when them on-field decisions are being questioned, to the extent right now that I'm questioning Eric Ten Hag, it pains me to say it, but we need to really look at it and think, can he turn this around? And if the answer's no, and if the answer's, I'm not sure how he's going to turn it around, I personally think that that's a very, very alarming sort of statement to make. So we'll jump into the comments now. 100% agree about Rashford and Bruno. He never had faith in he never had have never okay, sorry, let me start this again because it's a personal opinion as well. So so Inside Man United has said 100% agree about the Marcus Rashford and the Bruno point. He's never had faith in Fernandes or Rashford, being declining for 2 years. There's an argument there to be had, and I'm sure we'll be able to get into that soon as well in another show. Reject has said, there is certain managers out there. He's named people like De Zerbi, Nagelsmann, or Zidane. I'll throw another one in there, maybe Ancelotti. I know he's been linked with the Brazil job, but let's not go into that. That's not really my style of play, guys. I don't really want to be linking managers and having a look at the menu before you're about to order and stuff like that. There's a saying, I probably got it wrong, but anyway, that's what I mean. I don't want to talk too much about potential candidates, but we just need to focus on Eric Ten Hag, and the questions need to be there. And another damning verdict for Eric Ten Hag. Now, this situation with Bruno Fernandes and Mason Mount, I just don't understand this concept. So if you've brought Mason Mount in as a partner to Casemiro or Amrabat to allow Fernandes the license to go forward and really contribute to the stuff going forward, then why is he sat on the bench? Why is he not playing that? And that also indicates then that he wants to play in more of an attacking role, which is fine. If you brought Mason Mount in as a direct competition for Bruno Fernandes, then brilliant. Let's have some competition. Let's have some healthy rivalry, and let's see where this can take us. But the fact that in the same few weeks, you've given Fernandes the captaincy and you've given Mason Mount the most iconic shirt, not only at Manchester United, but arguably in the whole of the Premier League. You've given Mason Mount the number 7 at Manchester United. How can you bench one of them? And if you are going to bench one of them for the other one, or however you want to call it, you've clearly got another decision wrong. You've either given Fernandes the captaincy, which of course is the wrong decision, because he throws more tantrums than he actually has passes completed. It's a total farce when you're having youngsters on the bench dying to get on for Manchester United to show what it's all about, to see your captain throwing himself around, holding his face as if he's been elbowed by Tyson Fury in the Francis Ngannou fight, and claiming that he's got all of these issues. That's the captain. That is the captain of Manchester United. You can dissect all the statistics you want. I've done that before on this show, and they're damning to say the least when it comes to Fernandes. But just look at the way he carries himself off the ball. Let's not even talk about the shocking passes that he makes when he's on the ball, and the excuse that I'm constantly thrown at by Fernandes lovers or the Fernandes in fans is that he takes risks. He's a player that will obviously give the ball away because he's trying things that other players won't. I'll call it grenade ball. I'll call it just get your head up and see, okay, well, there's a player 50 yards over there. Let me just try and blast the ball over to him. There's no style of play. There's no leadership when it comes to off the ball decisions, when it comes to approaching the referee, when it comes to leading example to the younger players or even the other players on the pitch that you're so-called meant to be spearheading. You're meant to be leading by example. It's nothing short of a disgrace the way that Bruno Fernandes handles himself on a pitch. And as we always say, with the Glazers, the root of all evil will come from the top and simmer all the way through to the bottom. And let's apply that knowledge and let's apply that style of thought onto the pitch. If the captain is performing in that way, if the captain is acting in that way, what do you think the other players are going to do? What do you think Rashford's going to do when he looks over to his captain, Bruno Fernandes, and he's giving up? He's throwing his arms around. He's moaning. There was an instant in the game, right, where Fernandes just kicked the ball out of play. I think he got clipped up and it was on social media recently in the last couple of days. And he just tried to shift his body and pass the ball that way. Very simple pass, and it just goes out for a throw-in. What's Fernandez's first port of call? What's his first reaction? To moan, to complain, as if that was anyone else's fault. A true captain, forget a captain, a true player would look at the person he was trying to pass to and just hold his hands up and go, do you know what? That was my bad. I got that one wrong. I'm going to go again. I just don't understand why he doesn't do that. I've had enough of Fernandes. If I'm being totally honest with you, this guy is not a leader. If I'm being totally honest, he's a big fish in a small pond. He came into Manchester United when we were starving, absolutely starving of any creativity during the COVID season and all that kind of stuff. He provided some real good flary moments and provided a lot. But for me, I'm absolutely done with Bruno Fernandes now. The way he conducts himself as a so-called captain of Manchester United, throwing his arms around, constantly complaining, as I've said, holding his face as if someone's just elbowed him right square in the eye, it's completely unacceptable. And what kind of example is that setting to all the other players? What kind of example is that setting to the youngsters coming through the ranks at Manchester United, hoping one day that they could wear the armband at Old Trafford? This is what they have to aspire to be. And let me just remind you, ladies and gentlemen, who was the one who gave Bruno Fernandes the captain's armband? It was Erik ten Hag. We'll get into the comments before we obviously go into a little bit more about Manchester United realistically. And we'll probably preview a little bit of the Newcastle game as well if we've got a bit of time. So get your comments in now, guys. Who do you want to see start in that game? Who do you want to see come in and realistically show that they are worthy of playing for Manchester United? Because right now, not many players are. Let's get into the comments. You guys have been brilliant as always. Let's get into the comments now. So another one saying we don't have the players willing or able to play Erik ten Hag's style of one or two touch. I understand that. But Erik ten Hag's now had 2 summers in the job at Manchester United. Why is he not signing them types of players? And if you ask me, then someone like Mason Mount, he's quick with transitional play. He likes to have it quickly at feet to fizz it around the corner for the attacking players to run onto. But when you actually look at it, he hasn't done that at all. Erik ten Hag signed Mason Mount. And when I look at it and I think realistically, you should be signing players that are going to help you play in the way you want to do. And I realistically, and I look at it right, and I think to myself, after Erik ten Hag's comments, when he turned around and said it's impossible for us to play the Ajax way. So why the hell have you brought Martinez in? Why the hell have you brought Anthony in? Why the hell have you brought all these other players that you used to work with if you can't play the style of play that you wanted to play at your previous club? I just don't understand it. I just don't quite have the ability to compute what the hell Erik ten Hag's trying to do. And just before I get into the other comments as well, I just want to say one thing as well. The most worrying thing for me right now with Erik ten Hag, amongst all the other worrying things, as I say, there's so many things that Manchester United fans can be concerned about when it comes to Erik ten Hag right now. The substitutions, the starting 11, all of that kind of stuff. I just don't quite understand so many aspects of Erik ten Hag right now at Manchester United. But the most concerning thing for me is managers, of course, they change their style of play depending on what team they're coming up against. There's slight tweaks, there's slight changes to the squad to try and navigate their way through their opposition. But at this moment in time, Erik ten Hag is not changing from game to game. He's not even changing from half to half. Erik ten Hag is changing his on-field philosophy and formations every 20 minutes. You see Bruno Fernandes popping up in the holding role and then on the right wing, and then he's the furthest man forward pressing and leading the press in that way. There's just so many ways that Erik ten Hag is quite literally chopping and changing every 20 minutes, which makes me think to myself, if you can't even have a solid style of play for one whole game, where is this optimism coming from that he's going to implement a style of play for the rest of the season? And I keep saying it and I'll say it again. I think Erik ten Hag's a brilliant manager, but there are far too many questions to be asked when it comes to the on-field decisions for Manchester United fans at the very minimum to have their backup and to say, hang on a minute, you promised us a direct style of play. You promised us a philosophy so identifiable that anyone across the world watching Man United know that's Manchester United playing. That's not happened, and that is not where we're at the moment for Manchester United. So before I get into obviously the rest of my show, I just want to get into the comments now. So we've got here, who is ready to be our captain? Casemiro, Varane, Dalot, maybe. I think the one name for me that's is the only viable name to captain Manchester United is Lisandro Martinez. He's the only one that leads by example when he's playing on the pitch. I know he's had a difficult start, but he's had an injury to deal with, obviously going into this season. But you look at all the other players, Casemiro, Varane, how long are they going to be there for? You're going to have to make the same decision of a new captain when them players inevitably move on. Hopefully to Saudi Arabia where Man United can get hundreds of millions. But who knows? Right, I've just seen a comment, right? Here we go. I only normally take one sip of water, but I'm going to have to do another one on this stream because I've just been asked a really, really interesting question, shall we say. So Ziad has just commented on this stream. What would you rate yourself tier-wise as a journalist? Well, I think that's of course for people to decide themselves, you know. But I'm glad in a way that I'm able to address this question. You know, people often try to say when I do these streams or when my stuff gets clipped up for the MUFC MPB channel, or even when I'm on Talk Sport or posting stuff on my own podcast, the content. You know, people always like to say, you know, you're only doing this for clicks, you're only doing this for that or this or whatever. But for me, it's not about the clicks, it's not about getting the money, it's not about the fame or anything ridiculous like that. For me, it is quite literally just about being a voice of a Manchester United fan, of a football fan, of a fan of all sports. This is ultimately where I am at with my career, and that's where I'll try to be throughout the rest of it. So if you guys like it, amazing. If you don't, I'm sorry on my behalf, but I can't please everyone in life, you know? But we'll get into obviously now, before I want to do my player shout out, of course, like, subscribe, follow on all social media, the MUFC MPB. They've got a brilliant Twitter account that's been absolutely popping for so long now. Let's get the YouTube channel the same. Hit that subscribe button, people. Please be sure to follow everyone as well. And I've got just a comment from Ziad that says, did you see that City chant about us? And just above that, there's a lad called James. And now James actually is a very good friend of mine. But as you can probably tell, he's a Manchester City fan. And I can't believe I'm actually giving him more airtime here because he's nothing short of a disgrace when it comes to Man United. So he's wrote 2 comments. Old Trafford is falling down, which is, of course, the absolutely amazing song that the Man City fans were singing. And now it's going to go viral and all that garbage. And he's also put Norwich scarves back out the drawer, lads. Brilliant stuff. I just want to remind you of a time where you were actually embarrassed to even say that you're a Manchester City fan because you were so irrelevant. Keep enjoying the times, my friend. Keep enjoying the times as Manchester City fans, because when Pep Guardiola leaves, you're going to feel the same heat that Manchester United fans did when Sir Alex left. So I will be coming onto your stuff, mate. You work in the media as well. I know you've got an amazing TikTok account, but let me tell you now, my friend, I will be coming for you as well. But enough of that. Let's give all the Manchester City fans, you know, their applause. Thank you. All of that stuff. On here, Ziad as well. He's come in for James as well and says, you only exist because of the all money, James. Brilliant. That's what we're looking for. Give it him back, lads. That's what we want to see. A quick preview of the Newcastle game. We're running out of time, but look, this is a huge, huge game for Manchester United. This could almost be the confirmation. Well, realistically, it will be the confirmation of whether or not Manchester United will end up with any silverware, because as we know, the FA Cup is, of course, around the corner in the new year and all that stuff, but there's no guarantee because every team is still in that Manchester United will get to the latter stages or even win that competition. So this Newcastle game is absolutely massive for Manchester United, and it's even bigger for Erik ten Hag, because if he loses this, he's almost guaranteed that Man United will have another year with no silverware, and it almost again looks so early on at this stage that there is going to be an almighty mountain to climb to get to the top four again. Man United might even, in the likely case, drop into the Europa League. But the way Liverpool have been playing in that competition, oh, Anfield away in Europe, no, thank you. No, thank you. I don't think Man United are going to be able to have the cojones to even get through the Newcastle game in the League Cup. Never mind come up against a European giant like Liverpool in the Europa League. So again, it's a very worrying times. But at the end of the day, you know, you look at Man United and you think, look, Newcastle have got a lot of injuries at the moment. Uh, Man United, of course, have some as well. There will be expected rotation from both sides, but Man United are quite literally fighting to save their season tomorrow night. So if that doesn't give them players the kick up the backside that they need, then I'm not sure anything will, because you are, as I say, quite literally fighting for your season against Newcastle at home in the League Cup, which is again a damning indictment, which of course adds to all the stuff that I've been talking about in this stream. But you know, I've got to the stage now where I like to give a little shout out to a player. So please, if you're still with me in the stream, get your comments, give me whatever you want to do, past and present, a player for Manchester United that you want to give a shout out to for whatever reason. And the one individual that I do want to give a massive shout out to, this is the first opportunity that I've been live to be able to give my condolences, to be able to pay my tribute to the great Sir Bobby Charlton. Sir Bobby Charlton sadly has passed away last week, age 86. It was an incredibly difficult time for Manchester United fans to have one of the biggest names, if not the biggest name, for Manchester United sadly leave us. It was an incredibly difficult time, as I say, not only to have to hear obviously everyone's tributes, because this individual was not only so important to the progression of Manchester United, but also to be absolutely spearheading on the pitch the success, the brilliant days that Sir Bobby graced the Manchester United shirt in. As I say, it's incredibly heartbreaking, but I just want to take this opportunity now to really just go through exactly what Sir Bobby meant to everyone affiliated to Manchester United, everyone affiliated to English football. This man, this individual was someone who just brought so much positivity. He was on that plane in the Munich air crash, the biggest disaster in Manchester United's history, and he was the first person, if I'm not mistaken, to leave. Obviously, that hospital after that tragedy, and he was then spearheading the success of Manchester United afterwards. If there was only one thing to summarize Sir Bobby, that one would be it. But of course, there's so many other things. And of course, I was actually working on the show on Talk Sport, where the news obviously dropped that Sir Bobby has sadly passed away. And we obviously had a show completely prepared to talk about the day's football and stuff, but we had to wipe everything away to allow a show straight away, which TalkSport did brilliantly, by the way, to pay respects to Sir Bobby. And I had to ring up certain individuals that played with Sir Bobby to ask them to come onto the show to pay their respects and all of that stuff. And I was just listening to some of the things that Manchester United ex pros, ex teammates of Sir Bobby were saying about the brilliant man, and it nearly brought a tear to my eye, if I'm being honest. The way that people hold him in high regard, not just on the pitch but also off the pitch, is quite amazing to really hear someone and how many people that he touched in terms of their lives, in terms of their positivity going on through their livelihoods to supporting Manchester United. You know, in 1966, Sir Bobby was not only part of England's only World Cup success, but he was also a winner of the Ballon d'Or. And if that doesn't scream to you how much of an amazing player this man was, I'm not sure many things will. And, you know, in 2016, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was February time, Man United, Old Trafford, they named the South Stand after Sir Bobby in honour of Sir Bobby Charlton for what he did for Manchester United. So I just wanted to really pay my respects to one of the greatest individuals for Manchester United, not just for all the contribution he did on the pitch, but to really be such a figure off the pitch for Manchester United, to be such a hero for so many people across the world throughout so many generations. It's such a testament. And I just want to say, as I've said at the start of this, rest in peace, Sir Bobby Charlton. You are one of the biggest legends to ever grace the game of football. And I just want to say, on behalf of every Manchester United fan, a massive thank you for everything you have contributed to not only Manchester United, to not only England, but to football as a whole. So thank you very much. We've of course got one more shout out from Rajet that said, I would have put Cristiano Ronaldo down as his shout out. And you know what? I think it's about time we do have a little chat about Cristiano Ronaldo. And obviously, look, the interview that he did with Piers Morgan, right? It was very damning, and it turned a lot of Manchester United fans. And I was on Talksport too, and I said that he broke my heart, that interview, and I still stand by it. And it's not because of everything he said about the Glazers. It's not because everything he said about the stadium infrastructure or the facilities at Carrington. It was the fact that he went for Eric Ten Hag, and at the time where Eric Ten Hag was the only shining light in a very dark time for Manchester United. But if you look at everything he said about Man United, and he didn't say that about Eric Ten Hag, he would have gone down as the greatest interview in Man United's history, because that was exactly what Man United fans wanted to hear and wanted to see. But look, thanks a lot for everyone for getting involved in today's show. It's been a pretty hectic show. It's probably been a bit of a therapy session, if I'm being totally honest. It's a very difficult time for Man United at the moment. But look, if we all stick together as we have done over the last however many years, if we all stick together and we all just try and persevere and just have these open conversations. That's why when I was offered to do this stream once a week, I was so desperate to do it, because conversation is key. This is how we're going to move on as Manchester United fans, and this is how we'll always stick together. So thank you so much for everyone who's joined in. Thanks for everyone commenting. Thanks for everyone who's liked. Please hit the subscribe button, and please be sure to check out all the other guys in terms of the contributors to this channel. Follow MUFC MPB on Twitter. Please, as I say, keep smashing the subscribe button. Get your comments in below. Let me know what you guys want to talk about. Tweet me, get in touch with me, and we'll be sure to be back again with another show that is shaped by you guys. So thank you so much. Don't be too disheartened, Man United fans, because one day we will be back. I'm not sure when, but we will be back. So massive thank you again. Please be sure to like, subscribe, follow MUFC MPB on YouTube and Twitter, and let's keep this conversation going. Thank you, everyone.